Right, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Celestial Chronicles, where my friend Paul here. How you doing?
Not
Um,
bad. How are you?
yeah, living the dream, my friend, living the dream. And
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
yeah, we are. And today we've been looking forward to this one. This is
Yeah,
this is the top tier one, isn't it? This is where things get real in
yeah,
Doctor Who
yeah.
terms. This is the great one. So we're looking forward to talking about the Daleks today, and before we get deep into it, what are your thoughts first of all on the Daleks? How do you feel about it? Looking back and watching it after about 50 to 60 times that you have over your lifetime.
Well, it's an interesting story for me because I really like it. Firstly, I think there's a lot of good stuff in it. I think it's probably slightly too long, but we'll get more into that later. But
Yeah,
it's kind of. I originally saw this. I was very lucky in the 80s to get swaps of odd episodes or whatever from various people, and I had part one for a very long time
yeah,
before I saw the rest of it. But prior to that, I'd seen the Cushion movie before I got to see this. So
yeah,
obviously I kind of had an idea what was going on, a little bit about it, but there's much more to the almost 3 hours of the Daleks than there is to Doctor Who and the Daleks. But
yeah,
I've got a very fondness for it as well. And also in '83, we were lucky for the 20th anniversary. Our local cinema, Art House Cinema, showed episodes of black and white Doctor Who. They showed some of the
brilliant.
Daleks, bit of Moonbase and Invasion, and I think some Mind Robber as well. And it was fabulous. They weren't complete
Yeah,
strangers to all the
great.
episodes, and I saw more of it then, but it wasn't really properly until the VHS twin
Yeah.
box set thing that came out that I saw it properly, and I've loved it ever since. Great, 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 great series.
Oh, it's great, isn't it? And I'm the same as you. Yes, I had the Target novelization, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. But it wasn't until really I got that VHS set where I could just watch it beginning to end, and it's still an absolute favorite of mine. And you know, we'll go into it, but just that that first image of Barbara against the wall and that Dalek coming towards her, where you
and the
see the
Dalek plumbers to come to fix the
yeah,
toilets on level 7. That's it. Yeah. So
yeah, exactly, yeah, exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
they well,
You know,
it's funny because that made me laugh. But I was
Dino
on to
Rod,
it. Well, that's exactly it. Yeah, Scaro's Dino Rod. Yeah, the
yeah,
thing about it's really bizarre because the reason why I mentioned that in Doctor the Daleks movie, and in this as well, they've got Daleks with like flamethrower
yeah,
attachments or kind
yeah,
of it's a welding equipment attachments. So
yeah.
it makes perfect sense that he's the sanitary department of the city, obviously. Yes,
That's it. Block toilet on level 14.
that's it, exactly. Yeah, yeah. There'll be like a yellow sign that's got a shape of a Dalek kind of wobbling about on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just, yeah. Dalek Faye, please fix the problem.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so, I mean, obviously, the first episode, The Dead Planet, for me, there's two things to start off with that I really, really like about it. I love the fact that they come out of the TARDIS, and I love the fact that they spend time talking about the world before you
Mhm.
get into anything. And I do love the jungle, and I do love the sound effects they use for the jungle. And
Mhm.
it comes to that later where you see Susan running through it, and they make it terrifying with the thunder and lightning.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I also love as well that in this first episode, you've got Ian and Barbara showing their fears still about will they ever get home.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I think I said to you before that there's been other companions that have kind of been my favorite over the years, but watching this back again, with you so far, Ian is without doubt my favorite companion, because even though he has his own fears as well, he's trying to keep Barbara going at this point. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
saying to her, "We will get there. You've got to believe. Just believe, and it will happen." Um, so, what are your thoughts on the start of the first episode?
Well, the first episode, I think actually the first episode, this Dead Planet episode, is actually is probably as significant as part one of An Earthly Child because it
Yeah,
kind of it really it continues to set up the characters. But if you hadn't seen the first story, this is a quite a good place to pick up on, because it kind of does
Yeah,
um, go over the similar ground, but in a good way. I mean, but
yeah,
you get to understand their predicament. You get to understand how they're going to survive on the TARDIS with all the lovely stuff with the food machine, especially
yeah.
the bit about the doctor. He's tucking into a bacon and egg bar,
Brilliant.
and you want some tea? Do you? Oh, right, okay, I forgot about you lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
I
and
mean, you're right. I mean, that is
um,
effectively that's people praise Star Trek about the food replicators in
yeah, yeah,
Next Generation onwards, but Doctor Who did this decades before.
yeah,
With the
yeah.
TARDIS. It's great.
I love all that, but it's interesting. It's like a Mars bar type idea.
Yeah,
Other chocolate bars are available, folks, but
yeah,
it's kind of it's a bit like that, kind of it's one bite you taste the egg, one bite you taste the bacon sort of thing. It's a
yeah,
lovely idea, and I love that fact. My bacon's a bit salty, but shouldn't be. It's English, so that's a lovely moment, kind
yeah.
of in it, which is quite funny. But
And
it's a good episode, and it sets up the relationship with the characters, build on them.
yeah,
And I agree with you about William Russell. He's really superb as Ian. But again, I want to give more praise again to Mr. Hartnell, because I love
mm,
his, oh no, the fluid link's broken, kind
yeah,
of thing. And it's a bit like, we'll have to go to the city. Oh, what a shame. Oh no, but
yeah, exactly.
that is brilliant, because that's on a par with trying to bash Czar a little bit. It's kind of,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like I'm going to get my own way. It's my ship. It's my adventures. I'm going to do it my way. I'll take the highway. That kind of thing. It's lovely.
exactly.
It's really nice. It's funny.
And it's
Yeah,
very, again, when you refer back to the first episode, first story, you're right, because you still have the Doctor here, who's a very selfish individual who's
yeah,
not giving a damn about anybody else or the consequences. All he wants to do is investigate the city,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and he'll lie and he'll scheme to get his own way, and he gets called out for it, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and maybe that was the learning point for him sort of going
Mm,
forward. Like, I know we've talked before about the story that follows this.
yeah.
That's where you start to see a little bit more of the first Doctor coming into his own, and
Yeah.
yeah, but maybe it's the realization that of what he's done and the scheming he's done to get to where they are has
Mhm.
almost finished him off, but almost finished everyone else off as well. So maybe he's learnt from that.
Well, certainly he does later on, but when you get to even get into part two of this story,
Yeah,
there's that episode called "The Survivors." I think it is.
yeah,
We get to the second part, and they're in the Geiger counter room,
yeah,
and then he explains that he made it up, but he wants this fluid link, and he's going to leave everybody and just go back to the TARDIS,
yeah,
sod you, I'm off, kind of thing. And he does it even then, he's still
yeah. He
like,
does.
I'm away now. Yeah, yeah. But which I love. It's kind of, it's nice and alien. He doesn't care about anyone else apart from himself, which really gives a real sort of spice to it, don't you think?
Yeah, and all he cares about is, effectively, even at the end, he's like, right, where's my samples?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I need to take them with me. I got what I wanted out of this story. To hell with
yeah.
everybody else who died. I got my samples. um,
Exactly. It's a lot. It's almost like, say, in the first episode, they take a while to explore the jungle. The jungle set again for '60s Doctor Who. I think it's a really lovely set. I know
yeah,
it's about sort of 5 foot square or something, but it's got a lovely
yeah.
set, and the sort of petrified jungle kind of
Oh,
aspect of it
it's
is really
great.
really nice.
And I do love the model shot of the city.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's still beautiful, and where you've got the mist around the city as well. I think that's really well done. It's those people that were able to do that back then. They were just geniuses, weren't they?
Did you ever have, or have you got in your collection, the early years book that Jeremy Bentham made?
I
Um,
have. Yeah,
and there's some great photographs in there of the original models, which aren't quite so
yeah,
good, but you can see they were going with it. But the final model's great, and I'm really pleased that they redid it in
yeah,
The Witch is Familiar with,
yeah. That's it. When they
and it
rebuilt
looks
it,
really good. That was really nice, and it really paid homage to that. And it's a lovely set.
it's
And they
great.
do equally well in the film version, but I think this initial model is really good.
Yeah, I think it is superb. And what I love about the Dead Planet as well, and I want to talk about Barbara as well, and that those final scenes where it's so well played, where you see the fear, where before you even see the Dalek, she's running through the corridors and it's been
Yeah,
sealed off, and you see
yeah,
the panic in her eyes, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
before you even get to that point where she's like, I can't get out. I'm trapped here.
yeah.
You know, I'm
Well,
being
the fact she,
shoehorned.
they love all the shots of her feet going around the walls, and then she does it to the camera as well.
Yeah,
That's a really, really nice touch of claustrophobia. And then that lovely shot of the shadow of the lift going up and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
It's really, really, and the whole thing's really claustrophobic anyway because of
yeah,
because they designed the Dalek City for the Daleks. It's much smaller and everyone's crouching about and all that kind of stuff. So it
yeah,
really adds to that kind of
yeah.
claustrophobia, which is really nice.
And I think you're right. The story overall, there's elements where you think maybe you could cut it down now to make it a bit more slicker. But I think with the watching the colorization version of it, I
Yeah,
just think they missed out so many good bits. And you know, the thing about the original is character moments like this, they give them time to breathe
yeah,
and
yeah,
you to really experience, like, you know, terrors like that. Whereas
yeah,
colorization, they like to chop it, get in
yeah,
quick, move on to the next scene. Um, but I think with regards to moving on to the second episode as well, the survivors, um, I think it's played really well where Ian is effectively saying, you know, you've got to go back to the TARDIS, to
yeah,
Susan, um, and she's terrified, and he's like, you need to do this. There's no sugarcoating it. Effectively, you know,
yeah,
we don't know how long we've got left. You're the only one who can do it. Straight
yeah,
there, straight back. You know, and again, it's not the doctor taking charge because the doctor's incapacitated. It's Ian basically taking charge and saying, you need to do this. You know, you've got to give us a fighting chance. And, you know, it's just brilliantly done. But I was also going to say to you as well, is this the only time since, we haven't seen it since, where the Dalek actually paralyzes? Because I don't know if we've seen it again, have we?
we
Remind me
have
if
seen it
we
once
haven't.
in Planet of the Daleks when the Pertwee Doctor gets
Yeah,
stunned by the Daleks when he thinks Joe's dead. So that it
that's
happened
it.
once. But it's only
Yeah,
but Planet of Daleks is a
you're
remake
right.
of that dead the Daleks anyway. It's fine. That's allowed. So it's
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
fine.
So because I'd love that. I'd love to see that
Yeah,
again. Just seeing them, just like, you know, right? Okay, you're not getting away from us. We're going to knock your legs out for a
yeah.
few hours.
It's
You
quite
know.
the original extermination that happens to Ian in part two is great. It's a lovely moment. It's a
Yeah.
kind of classic Who moment because the Daleks they're quite nasty. Don't mess with them
Yeah.
kind of thing. You know, they might look odd or depending on how you see them as if you're not a fan,
Oh.
people think look ridiculous. But I think I love the Dalek design. Ridley
Oh.
Kupick he really deserved lots of money for that, which he never got
It's
sadly. Which
it's beautiful, isn't it? And
yeah,
you know what I love as well is I love in the original just the way the lens changes like a camera.
yeah,
You know, just they did so well with that that look. I really like that detail that they put into it. But and then they talk about 500 years ago, the Daleks and Files had a neutronic war.
mm,
You know, um, it, they're building up the history of the planet. You know, which works really well. The first time I think in the series we actually hear them talk about the fact that TARDIS has a defense mechanism as well in this
yeah,
episode, where they
yeah,
talk about it's got a lock that will just melt out if it's not done correctly.
yeah,
So again, little bits they start adding in over the season, don't they?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but what are your
Unless
thoughts
the
on?
censor it, you can just burn it out and take it out, depending on what's happening later on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Artistic license, mate.
Yeah, well, it's depending on the script writer, obviously. I know Dave
Yeah,
Whitaker was editing the scripts, but that's fine though. They didn't actually use the lock, but
yeah.
suppose when the lock came out, it did make the TARDIS unopenable, effectively, wasn't it? So
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, And have you got any sort of fave bits from the episode 2? Anything that
Well,
you really like?
I do like the Dalek extermination is superb. That's one of my favorite
Yeah,
bits. And just the Daleks constantly monitoring the prisoners as well. I think they do about that in 2 and 3 until
yeah,
they escape. But I like all that kind of sort of slightly Big Brother stuff. They're watching them, analysing what's going on and how they're behaving, and all that kind of stuff is really, really
yeah,
good. But I do like the, as you said, that the way it's shot. And again, it's a bit like Anthony Child when they run back to the TARDIS because there's limited set. Susan's got to have branches
yeah.
pushed
It's
against her
great.
face, and it works really well considering
Yeah,
she's
it does.
probably just moving on the spot effectively to make it work a little
Yeah,
bit, But it's shot beautifully, and with the thunder and all that, it's really, really good. And I think it really adds to the tension of it, and you really feel for it. When you get to the safety of the TARDIS as well at the end of the
yeah,
episode, that's really good because one thing I don't like about New Who particularly is not having proper TARDIS doors. Those wooden doors
yeah. I know. Same.
don't have the same impact. When I was a kid watching Doctor Who, when they got into the TARDIS, like in Death to the Daleks,
Safety.
when your safety, you're safe there. And that bit in
Yeah,
Death to the Daleks, when Sarah gets into the TARDIS, thinks she's safe, but there's an Exelon in the TARDIS. That
yeah.
was scary.
Great.
So to
Yeah.
have the fact that once you shut the doors, you're safe. That really makes she
I
doesn't want to go back to the city, does she? Because she's obviously scared. She's safe in the TARDIS. She's got the drugs,
It
but
works
she has to
so
go back.
well.
Yeah, it's really, really
Yeah,
good. Yeah,
because she's starting to build it up, and I think
yeah,
when you're right, because when you look at RTD, when it came back, he said, oh, he wanted the wooden Daleks, TARDIS doors, and kind of wanted it a bit like the Cushion movies
yeah,
TARDIS.
yeah,
I didn't like that because when you look at the Cushion movie, as much as I love it,
yeah,
the Carl opens the doors and
yeah,
then comes inside.
yeah,
And I'm like you, growing up, I always thought, well, that was the safe zone. No
yeah,
one could get in it unless you invited them in.
yeah. Or
And
the
I
pushed
loved
away
that.
like the Cybermen in Earthshock or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, yeah,
And
yeah,
and I do like, yeah, that scene with Susan where she's like, you see that brief moment of relief where she's like, I'm back in the TARDIS, I'm okay.
yeah,
And then the realization that she's got to go back out there
yeah,
and she's got to
yeah,
get back, and it's played really well. And it's a favorite of mine. I think you also see in this episode probably for the first time the real ruthlessness of the Daleks, because
yeah,
the Daleks are the first time they're talking about that they say then he must die. So you start for the first time seeing, right, okay, they're ruthless, but then they kind of also, there's the conversations about, you know is there something inside it,
yeah, yeah,
and it builds, and I think that's done really well because they sort of, they're already in episode 2, they're building it again.
yeah,
Effectively they're setting you up to say there is something inside it, but we're
yeah,
going to tell you, oh, you know what, do you think there
yeah.
could be something inside it? It's not a robot, it's not a machine.
Well, they're doing it's a bit is like audience identification, isn't it? They're doing
Yeah,
that to tell us to because
exactly.
the audience asking the same question: What are these things? What are they? What
Yeah,
this robot? Yeah, so they're basically doing what we would do as human beings, and just kind of
yeah.
they're doing that for our benefit, aren't they? So
And then in the following episode, you've got, the file says to Susan, he says, if they call us mutants,
what
so that's
machine are
another
they?
nod to it.
Yeah,
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 and that's like you say, that's prepping us for
yeah,
what is to come. Um, um, they also are like, moving on to the escape in episode 3. I like the fact that they, again, when I talk about world building, and we've talked about these days, a lot of shows, they don't do enough of that.
There's no
But they
time for it, like you said. There's no time
exactly,
for it.
and they talk about, the files, in the wars. They were the warriors, and and the Dalek race. They were the teachers and the philosophers.
The
Um,
Daleks, yes,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. The Daleks.
yeah,
So I like that they're just building the history of this world. You know what has gone on before. What happened centuries before. It's very well done. you
There's
know.
actually something about this always makes me laugh still, and I think it's really well done, and it's a clever idea because it makes kids do it as well, that they can do it. When Ian
Yeah,
goes into the Dalek, it's a bit nonsensical, but you go with it, it's fine. Because
yeah,
how he can fit into it, I'm not quite sure, because the Dalek creature's only so big or whatever,
yeah,
and it's got all the controls to work, how he, as a human, fits into it. But
yeah.
it's a genius idea because it's like kids all over all the fans want to be inside the Dalek and play inside and have a laugh about it.
Merchandise
And merchandise,
heaven.
exactly. Then you get the Dalek play suit later on, blah
Yeah,
blah blah. So you can see the idea behind that, trying to encourage children to want to do it as well, which is a
exactly.
lovely
Yeah,
moment. But I love the fact that in that episode when they do try to assault the Dalek, is that Barbara picks all the mud off the shoes. I
yeah,
hope there aren't any dogs or cats on Skaro because I'm dread to think she stepped her on the way back on the way to
yeah,
the city. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's
Well,
like,
that Dalek ice store. Thank goodness they destroyed it because it would be need to be disinfected, wouldn't
yeah,
it?
probably yeah, hosed down, probably yeah. So
And and it's that that is again going into the Dalek, the escape. What they're doing there. I do like the fact they go up the lift. They get
yeah,
out. You're not sure, and they build up that tension of, do you know whether Ian's going to get out or not? Because this
yeah,
is only the second story.
yeah,
The viewer doesn't know that all of them are going to be okay.
yeah.
So you're still at that point where you don't know if all of them are still going to be around.
I think that's
It's a
good.
new
Also,
show.
because well, the heart leader generally is like almost like one continuous story because
Yeah,
every episode leads into the other kind of thing most of the time, which I love that because they're all connected. But just going back ever so slightly,
yeah,
when they take the Dalek out of its casing, that's a great moment as well.
yeah.
Especially when
That definitely.
Ian and the Doctor, particularly, they're quite gentlemanly. You know, like can
Yeah,
you go outside and keep guard because this is not going to be very nice
yeah,
moment, which is really lovely. But then I don't know if you've noticed this, and this will probably spoil it for people. You can see the operator bending down, and you can see him. You see the white shirt when he's down there when they take him out, which is lovely
yeah,
because obviously that will continuous take just about because they couldn't stop. But
yeah,
and then they take the creature out, and that lovely cliffhanger of the
yeah.
cloth coming out, and they do it more in the movie
They
version of
do.
that kind of death throw of the creature that goes like that and then dies.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's a lovely moment, and I'm always a fan of the creature being seen. I think they've overdone it a little bit in New Who, a wee
yeah.
bit. But I think when we see the creature, that's a lovely moment, and they've done it a few, not
Oh,
as
it's
many times
great.
as you think in classic Who. There's not many.
But
In fact, you don't see them until Dalek Master Plan again, do you? I think
yeah,
at this point.
but again, it doesn't reveal all of it. It
No,
just gives you
yeah,
enough to say this is a creature inside of the Dalek.
yeah, yeah,
That seeing what's inside, that will come later.
yeah.
Um, and it's so well done. And you know, it, it's just again, it's just building this creature from
Yeah.
scratch. And you can see why they became so iconic because
Mm,
you know other shows they would have had him as just a robot,
yeah.
but to have this mutant creature inside of it is great. And I think we get the first comments as well in it about static electricity is used,
Mm,
and that's well done as well. um but it's interesting because they talk about the static electricity, but then in the episode, in the story as well, they talk later on about the fact that they need radiation to survive.
yeah.
So I kind of think, well, in a way, I was in my head when I was watching it. I was thinking, well, with New Who, when they learn to use the power of the radiation of the time vortex
Yeah.
as a power source, well, that kind of works in a way
Mm.
because you've got the first story saying that they operate off of radiation, and then you've now got New Who where that comes into it. So I could totally believe that because it's again they're evolving. It's
It,
in their
no,
wheelhouse to an
I know
extent.
what you're saying, but from me being a bit OCD about it, because the Daleks is set in the future, it means they've
Yeah,
devolved. They've devolved a bit like the
yeah,
Master Gridlock or whatever. Whether that
Yeah.
again, we don't know when it's set because that the Doctor's speculation in Dalek Invasion of Earth is only speculation. He doesn't really know,
Yeah.
so it could be set any time. But it's also like at this point there's no sign of Davros, so it's after Davros anyway. It has to be after Davros,
Yeah.
but it depends on how you place it. But continuity is a funny thing in Doctor Who. Yeah,
I tried once and it gave me a headache.
just once.
Yeah, that was enough.
Yes,
I needed whiskey after that.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
We are at we've got the expedition now.
Yeah.
So I was going to say this, and one note I'd made as well was, again, going back to William Russell and how good he is as Ian, and this is all credit to him. You've got in this episode, you've got Hartnell gets his name wrong, gets Ian's name wrong, right?
Yeah.
But William Russell brilliantly improvises straight away, and he says it's Chesterton, and adds that into the story, and it works so well because I know it's a mistake by Hartnell, but
is it definitely a mistake though? Because
I think it is.
Yeah, the idea of him doing that was meant to be like a running gag that Hartnell had worked on. Whether that is a cover story or not, because he does it in part 1 as well, doesn't he?
And I think because there's probably a lot of this was like a one take story, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it was. I think it was, and I think I've just got a feeling William Russell picked up on it.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that then Hartnell then goes to that place really well. Where it's kind of like you say, there's that in joke. Then there's Ian calling him on it, which is done really well. And anyone in the chat, put your opinions in about whether you think that was an in joke or not, because me and Paul would love to hear what they think as well.
Yeah.
But because otherwise me and Paul will go out in the street and fight, won't we?
Yeah. Well, that's it. We carries on a lot through the series, and the Romans as well. There's that bit about Chatterton, or he goes,
that's it.
The Barbara's calling you and all that kind of stuff. It's quite funny. They play it on it more. So maybe it was a mistake. Then they went with. I don't know. But I read an article somewhere that said that Hartnell had worked on the idea to get his name wrong. But like you say, things have gone awry when it's been a continuous take, and I can understand that, because that must be quite tough.
Oh yeah, too right. I mean, I know people talk about Hartnell's health and how that deteriorated, but even if you're in your prime and you're doing it in one take, it must be absolutely.
Well, I'd heard
extremely difficult.
Back to New Who again. Sorry, that I heard that the next series has got a Doctor Light episode, and there's only 8 episodes with the Doctor in it. And anyway, so they've got one episode he's not in, so that's not even about a third of what Hartnell endured. That murderous first season, and apparently they continued. Apparently, Dalek Invasion of Earth and Planet of the Giants was part of season 1, and was held back to be part of season 2. So imagine he did Anthony Child right to Dalek Invasion of Earth in one go for the year. That's a hell of a lot of time. He wasn't on a holiday. He wasn't on a holiday that much, was he? To be fair,
no, he wasn't.
There,
that'll take you without a doubt.
But even though he didn't know at that point he was unwell, if I can believe Adventure in Space and Time. But the fact he was unwell, I think he does an amazing job. And he always gets kind of ribbed about forgetting his lines and radiation gloves and all that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
But he still does a great performance, regardless of the occasional hiccup, But
again, today, everything that's come from him, how the show's continued, is all credit to what he did. And the fact is, I know we joke about it, but those stories, when you're sitting and you're watching those stories, you don't focus on any of that. You just focus on how brilliant he is as the First Doctor. And he set the tone, didn't he? He said it. Troughton did really well being the first regeneration as well. Because without that working, we wouldn't have carried on. But you just got to give it to Hartnell. He was just so good, wasn't he?
Definitely,
yeah. And I mean, the expedition as well, I do also like the fact, I talked about earlier where they talk about their condition to radiation
Mm.
after all these centuries, but then you've got the Daleks going mad after taking the antidote.
Yeah,
I love it. Ah.
yeah. It's a bit like the sort of indication of Dalek porn, a bit, isn't it?
Yeah,
To be honest
yeah,
with you.
exactly.
It's a bit unfortunate, yeah, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So only fans for Daleks.
exactly, it's a bit unfortunate, yeah. So
And again, they sort of show about how ruthless the Daleks are as well, that they give it to an entire work center of Daleks. That builds that as well, and
yeah,
they it's killing them, and then they figure out, let's let the radiation into another section,
yeah,
and all of them recover apart from one that was too far gone. So it shows again that Daleks, they're not scared of experimenting on their own kind. They'll do what they need to do to progress. So
and survive.
which is really, really good. And I'm going to say it. I love the talk about the mutations in the lake.
Yeah,
I really do like it, and when we move on to that in the Ordeal in the next episode, I do love the monsters in the lake. I still think today they're really well done, but in my head, like you're talking about, what time does all this happen?
yeah.
In my head, at times, I think to myself, they're all the experiments Davros did that have just been let loose, and they're in that lake.
Yeah, that Ace Warrior costume that's in Genesis is in there somewhere. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's great. I love it.
And
And
the clams will be there as well. It's there
slowly moving across.
or maybe even from Nuhu, the hands are there as well. I don't know, the hands with the eyes on it and stuff like that. Yeah,
and the clam's still got Harry's sock hanging out.
Possibly, yes. Or one of his shoes. He's always losing his shoes.
Yeah, he is. He loves giving shoes away. That Harry. And what is there anything in the expedition that you really like about that story?
I quite like the build up of the Thals and the Thals that are they're really struggling to survive the Thals. That's quite good. They've had famine and stuff like that, and they've had real problems. You get more of their kind of backstory and about the relationship with the two brothers as well, and the fact they don't want to do this expedition. They want to just go back. And the cowardly brother and all that kind of stuff is really a nice touch.
It's
and
great.
as we get later on, I like the fact that the brother actually dies, but he doesn't in the film version.
Yeah,
I think it's much more dramatic. But I'm jumping ahead a little bit there. But I think
no, you're right.
That relationship is quite interesting. Not so sure about some of the acting choices, but the relationship's quite interesting. But
and I also we'll get to that point definitely, because me and you'll talk about that, because compared to the Cushing movie, that bit, we'll go into that, because me and you've got
just Ian's hands shaking with the rope. That's a lovely moment. That's like
it is.
It really adds to the tension, and that's what he had, because he was almost going over. In the film version, obviously, Roy Castle, it's still quite tense, but it's not the same intensity, I don't think.
No, it's not. And but we'll cover that now, actually, because it's like, the movie version, you have Roy Castle kind of, he winks at him, doesn't he? He goes, I'll catch you, and then he goes down, and then he kind of gives almost like a bit of a comedy look when his shirt gets ripped. And they're trying to pull him up, and and then obviously he cuts the rope. But I think I said to you the other day, similar to you, I saw the movie version before I saw the TV broadcast episodes.
Yeah.
And for me, it surprised me, because in the movie, yes, he cuts the rope, but he survives it, and he's hanging onto that rock with his his eyeliner on, and
it was his eyelashes that held him onto the rock, probably. A grappling hook. It's an eyelash.
It's a specific foul mutation that enables them to climb mountains. Yeah,
But that must be, I mean, the ropes cutting into him, and everything else. It must have been really
yeah.
uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And like you say, in the broadcast, the TV episode, you see Ian really struggling. He can't get up. He's trying to hold on, and you see he's starting to slip.
Yeah,
And then a file comes to help him, and then he says, "Right, get someone else as well." But of course, you're looking at it and you think, well, you're on a narrow ledge here. And I
mm,
think they'd already built it up a few minutes before where they said, well, it's only got room for two.
yeah, yeah.
So you know that they can't get another person round there. And,
Mm.
and there's only one outcome, isn't there, really? But yeah, and I do like the end. It's and then you just hear a plop going into
Yeah,
water.
yeah. It's like a bit like the Voord that goes down in Seas of
Yeah.
Mariners. But it's better than the film version. Don't get me wrong, I'm
Yes.
not knocking the film. I love the film. The films
Same.
I adore completely. They're very
Absolutely.
different. They're very different
Yeah.
takes and pacing, etc. But I always hated that bit. Help! Get me out of here! The guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're trapped on the ledge. That's a bit naff. But
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
a family film. I appreciate that. That's why they're doing it. But
Exactly. But
yeah,
but again, I think what I like, just jumping back to the expedition as well. What I like as well is I think you see the Doctor here. He does start coming into his own because you start to see more of the Doctor that we know, where
yeah,
he's putting a plan and strategy together on how to
yeah,
defeat them. And I think that works really well. And you can see Hartnell's relishing it at this point.
yeah,
I think he's
yeah,
really, really clicking, isn't he?
yeah, yeah,
So good. And then, yeah, jumping back to the ordeal, I mean, I do love that shot where Ian and the files that they look over. It might be at the end of the expedition actually, but they look over and just the effect shot of, you see the water pipes going up the mountain,
yeah, yeah,
and linking to the lake. I thought that's really well done.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's
I
better
do
the
enjoy
shot
it.
they do in early on in the Daleks when they see the city from the ledge.
Yes.
We didn't mention the binocular glasses. We didn't mention that. They were
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
interesting futuristic gadgets. Very
Yeah.
very Star
Exactly.
Wars.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, George Lucas, he'll steal anything, won't he?
Hey, well, if it's not Neil Dill, he'll have it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Allegedly.
yeah. And again, talking about the Doctor going into his own as well, I love how he's got the files with the mirrors,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's sci-fi and it's affecting their senses. That's great.
Yeah.
But you also have, I mean, we've talked about it before, but you have that cave scene. I think that's where you could edit it down now, where that does drag quite a bit, and we joke
Yeah.
about that's why it's called the ordeal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not called Ordeal for nothing. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The Ordeal is the bit. There's a bit that still gets me when the Barbara's climbing around the polystyrene rock and she's holding on to a bit. The bit comes off on her hand. Did you
Yeah.
notice that? And then
Yeah.
there's a white. The obviously the rock kind of brown, but then the white bit comes. The bit comes off. You see a white circular bit that she's broken off, but she carries
Yeah.
on. She's such a trooper. She keeps going, and
Oh,
it's like I felt really
legendary.
sorry for her at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I like as well about the Doctor, where they're disrupting the sensors, Dalek
Yeah.
sensors with the mirrors, but then he goes to the city and he disrupts their alarm system,
Yeah.
with the TARDIS key. But
Yeah.
what I also like as well is you've still got the arrogance of the Doctor there,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he doesn't move on because he
Yeah.
thinks he's beaten them and he's
Yeah.
he's 3 steps ahead, and they
Yeah.
catch him as a result of it. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so his ego gets the better of him,
Yeah.
and you
Which is
see
lovely.
that
Yeah.
going on. Yeah, which
Yeah.
is really good. And I mean, the final episode, I do think the set is great, and where you've got Susan and the Doctor shackled to the wall.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that's well done. I do like that. What are your thoughts on the final episode?
I think the final episode is interesting. I think probably this would be better if it was 6 parts rather than 7. I think you could probably lose an
Yeah,
episode. I think Simmons gives some good moments in it. I think it's a slightly anticlimactic finish to it a little bit.
Yeah,
But maybe that's because I'd seen the movie before, and that's got a massive explosion, all that kind of stuff in it. You know,
yeah,
what's that? Three. That's three's my lucky number. All that kind of stuff. As the Royal Castle has in that. I think it's a bit the Daleks kind of power running down doesn't really work as well. It's not as
yeah,
dramatic. But I think
yeah,
the end bit with the Dalek and the Dalek begging to be saved is a nice moment between the Doctor and the Dalek, and the Doctor saying, "I couldn't help you even if I wanted to." Kind of
and then,
that's an interesting moment. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's a nice moment, but I think it's not as dramatic, I think, as it might have been or could have been.
yeah,
Having said that, I love the end of the episode though when they're in the TARDIS and there's a massive explosion that leads into Edge of
yeah.
Destruction, which is superb. And that shot, the TARDIS and the Time Lord going up and down, and they're all
It's
enjoying
great.
themselves, and then bang, it's fantastic cliffhanger at the end.
It's great, and you know that was where that era, you know, really got you excited for the following episode because you know you've talked about it before, but they're all linked,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it just jumps into the next episode,
Mhm.
and you're just like, you know, you. I mean, it grips me now, but you can imagine kids in the schoolyard talking about, oh, can't wait to see what's happened next week and
Yeah,
tune in and
yeah.
watch it. You know, it's very well done.
Well, that was one thing we talked earlier on about the colorization version of it, and that was
Yeah,
one thing I adored about that product was the end bit. They did the lead into Edge of Destruction, then what's coming next, and they had
yeah,
lots of color clips of Hartnell episodes.
yeah.
That looked superb. That was really well done. I have to say that worked
It
really well.
was. It
Yeah,
was. You know, and the different coloured Daleks, and
yeah.
yeah, that was a really nice little
But
segment.
I think sadly the best thing, the colorization version of it, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but
Yeah,
the editing for me wasn't great. The
no,
constant flashbacks for people with low attention spans wasn't great,
yeah,
and I like Mark Hare's music generally, but the music version used in this wasn't very good.
no,
I
I
mean,
didn't. It
they
took me
tried
out of
to
it.
yeah, they tried to use sort of music from the serial, maybe some stuff from Tristram Carey's stuff from Master Plan and stuff like that. That was nice, but the newer stuff they added
Yeah,
just killed it stone dead.
yeah, it's
And they
horrible.
did this bizarre thing. They kept doing establishing shots of the city, which a bit like if you watch Family Guy or The Simpsons, you always see the house of the family, and they're the same thing with the Dalek City. They kept popping up. Here we are
Yeah,
back in the city, but people can follow it without
yeah,
having to have that constant
yeah,
reminder.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I
We
think
know where we are.
yeah. So I'm hoping they're not going to do any more of these because the
I
first
hope
one
not.
wasn't very good. You know, so
I'm the same as you, and I remember when it was announced, and I thought to myself, when you talk about the quality of the animations that are being put out now,
yeah,
and yet
yeah,
they're wasting money on colorizing
yeah.
these stories. And don't get me wrong, the people that did the colorizations, they are superb. You know,
Oh,
all credit to
that's
them. They're
particularly good.
talented.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but no one's asking for that at the moment.
yeah,
What people would rather have is they'd rather have decent animations of the missing stories
yeah, yeah,
first.
yeah.
Then you can talk about colorization. But
Yeah.
it's for me, it's just a wasted budget. Is it a bit of a 60th glamour project?
Well, it's a bit like the Blu-rays and the DVDs having alternate special effects because some of
Yeah,
them I've just finished watching most of season 15 now, and
yeah,
I'm rewatching Invasion of Time this time with the special effects on it. I'd seen it before, obviously, but
yeah.
I'm watching them again. I did the same with Horrifying Rock and Invisible Enemy, and I have to say, I don't think it was necessary for any of it to be done at all because it's not the effects aren't that bad to need changing. You know what I mean?
No,
Especially Invisible Enemy, the model work in Invisible Enemy is superb. So why did you bother
yeah.
changing it? You know?
And I think they should have just drawn up a short list of ones where you think, well, hang on a minute, these stories are the
Yeah.
ones that need to have new CGI, new special effects put into them.
Save it for the dinosaurs, please.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Make it
yeah,
very Jurassic Park esque.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's go
You
with
know,
that. Yeah,
yeah. Get Spielberg in
yeah, yeah,
the Spielberg cut.
yeah. We'll have Jeff Goldblum as the
Yeah,
doctor instead. That'll be it.
leather jacket, curly
Exactly.
hair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every planet has an America. That's how it works. But
Yeah,
so,
and 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 jumping back as well to the Daleks. one thing I was going to mention that I didn't bring up earlier as well. I do love when the fowl is coming in to get the food,
Mm,
and I do love how you see just how sinister the Daleks are, where they're all
yeah,
waiting in those cubicles, and they are waiting for that moment where he's in sight, and they're just going to wipe him out, you know, and that
yeah,
just shows how awful those creatures are.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
just just great, you know, and I still to this day going, you know, I still love the extermination effects. I still
Mm.
think they're
Oh
they're
well,
superb.
that shot where the it fires and it hits the wall when Ian tries to
Yeah,
warn them, and that bubbling on the wall is a really good
yeah,
effect.
brilliant.
My wife and I were watching the colorization of the Daleks, so it was broadcast on BBC 4, and she thought that effect was particularly good. And she's
Yeah,
not overly impressed sometimes with classic Who effects, so that was I was quite impressed she liked that one.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
has a lovely effect. That marbling on the wall and the bubbling is
Oh,
really
it's
nice.
great.
Yeah,
It's great, and it was really well done. And um, you know, I think I do love, like we've touched on, the Dalek begging for pity,
mm,
but I do love we kind of finished that episode in the story where the Doctor talking about always search for truth.
yeah,
You know, he makes that comment, and you think, yeah, he's arrived now. I think
yeah,
this first Doctor's settling down now,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
know, it's it's just great, you know. And I think when you hear people talking about going again, jumping into New Who, and they're saying, "Oh, the Doctor would do that and do this." No, what the Doctor would do, as he said there right at the beginning, and this is the second story, he searches for truth.
yeah,
So he won't believe lies. He will follow the evidence wherever the evidence takes him, rightly or wrongly. He will do that,
yeah, yeah,
and this is what we love about the Doctor.
yeah.
Um, and you know,
I think you've
he's
got to
great.
understand as well. People often go about the development of the Doctor, but you have to understand what happened in Unearthly Child. The fact that the teachers broke into their house effectively
Yeah,
and were threatening the Doctor with whatever, blah blah blah. I think they upset the apple cart so much for the Doctor. You can understand why he's a bit annoyed. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
If that
Well,
was you in that situation, you probably feel the same. You know what I mean? But
exactly
not to the
right.
extent, not to the extent you want to kill a caveman, of course. But that's another thing. But
well. To be
yeah,
honest with you, I'm glad it was set in the UK. This series, because if it had set in the States and someone had broken into your home, you could shoot them.
allegedly, yes,
Yeah, see Hartnell there with a shotgun.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, yeah, possibly, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
uh,
But
and
it's kind of it's interesting. I think I agree with you. He does that lovely speech at the end about kind of being a pioneer, all that kind of stuff is really really nice. It's a nice moment. Yeah,
yeah, and I also like the fact where he says he may come back at some point in the future and settle with their descendants, you know, and
and then the Thal woman giggles, embarrassed that she's going to
yeah.
the implication of sex. Oh no, it's a bit sort of
Yeah, and of course you have the
uh,
first real romance between Barbara and a fowl, don't you? So
yeah, yeah,
you know, um, I mean that's well done. I mean, you know, Barbara clearly had feelings for him, but you know that nice little peck,
yeah.
you
It's
know.
interesting, Terry Nation. I know
Um,
people often say that Planet of the Daleks is Nation's greatest hits or a remake of the Daleks. It's interesting
yeah,
because Latep does a similar thing with Joe. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
and I always like, you know, because you say that Terence Dix always used to say that, didn't he? And he said
yeah,
he got a script for it for their series, and you know that the new series for Tom, and he basically went, "Well, this is great, Terry, but you've already done it."
yeah,
And he's like went away and then came up with Genesis of the Daleks, you know. So
yeah.
it's great, you know, it's top drawer stuff. But
I think it's funny because I think both stories, although they're similar, I think this the Daleks is better than Planet of the Daleks. Some great moments in Planet of the Daleks. Don't
yeah,
get me wrong, but I think this I
yeah,
prefer this as a as of the two stories. I prefer this one. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. I agree. I this one is above Planet of the Daleks. As much as I love Planet of the
yeah,
Daleks, this
yeah.
one is so much better. But so, what would you give it out of 10?
Well, just before I do that, I'm going to say
Yeah,
well, you can see the influences of the time machine in this. You know, the Eloy being the Thals and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So you can see where Terror Nation was inspired by certain other influences of things, you know, which is fine. But
yeah,
I think I love that kind of almost similarity between the Eloy and the Thals and
yeah.
the Morlocks and the Daleks and that kind of stuff. So that's interesting kind of comparison. But the
It
Time
is.
Machine, the Rod Taylor version is one of my favourite movies, which
Oh,
hopefully
it's great.
we'll review at
We
some point on this channel. But yeah,
we're going to do both. We're going to do both. We're going to do the 60s version,
right.
and we're going to do the Guy Pearce version, and we're going to
It's funny.
compare.
I've recorded. I've got Virgin Media and the kind of TiVo thing. I've recorded it several times, but never watched it. I've got it there.
Have you really?
I've seen bits of it. I think the CGI in it's appalling, but anyway, that's another story.
Yeah,
But the bits I have seen of it, yeah. But,
there's some nice bits in it,
yeah.
but then it's not got a touch on the 60s version.
Well, they don't have the dummy in the window for a start, which is a missed opportunity there. But
exactly, and
yeah.
I mean, I think you see it for about a few seconds. There's almost like a nod to it, but
yeah,
like it's so good in the 60s version where he keeps coming back and he's like, oh, it's like an old friend, or you know, it's great stuff, and
it's great stuff.
They are going to be done.
Yeah, I was going to say also we didn't really talk about the direction in this as well. I think Chris Babay is a really good director, and I know it's him and Richard Martin who've done a mixture of the episodes together. I can't remember exactly who did what off the top of my head, but I think Chris Babay is a better director than Richard Martin. I think
and he shadowed him, didn't he?
Yeah, so I think it's a shame. I wish Chris Barry continued more of the Dalek stories than Richard Martin did, because I think he's a bit, as much as he's a nice man in interviews, I think he's a bit of a lackluster director compared to Christopher Barry, which is a shame. But
Christopher Barry's a great, isn't he? It just, we'll have to talk about him at some point, I think, because there's a lot of stories that I enjoy that he's directed, so that'll be good. But out of 10, what do you give this one?
Well, I think it needs to be an episode shorter, definitely. I think it's just maybe slightly too long. Some great bits. The first 4 episodes are superb. When they do the journey to get the expedition round to the other side of the Dalek city, it kind of wanes a little bit. I'll probably give it 8 out of 10. Yeah,
I'd actually agree with you on that. I knocked a couple of points off for the same reason, that I thought I love it, but I think the Ordeal. It
is an ordeal.
Like you say, it is an ordeal, and I think it's just that could have easily been stripped out, and you could have added maybe some of the brief elements of the cave scene, maybe to the rescue, at the beginning of the rescue, and tie it in, and it would just tighten it up. So I would say an 8 out of 10. But so far, I mean, I'm having a blast doing these reviews and talking about these superb stories, and apparently we've got quite a few Doctor Who stories to go ahead of this. I don't know about you. I didn't know that.
There's one or two. Yes. So this might take a while. So it could be here till 2030 the way it's going, but it's fine.
Yeah. By the time we get to the end of it, me and Paul will just be heads with plugged into the PCs.
Yeah, be like something like, or in jars of water, like Futurama sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Blinking to keep getting the chats popping up.
I suppose we became a bit like the brains from Keys and Mariners to keep on Doctor Who topic, be like that.
Yeah. Well, at least me and you have a role.
We will, yeah. Yeah, we may have hair by that point. Who knows? But
yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, you never know what's in the cards, mate. You never know.
Exactly. Who knows? Yeah.
But I hope everyone in the chats enjoyed it. Feel free to put some comments in there, and we'll see you for the next episode, which I'll let Paul tell you which one it's going to be.
Oh, let me think. What is it? Oh no, The Edge of Destruction. Yes.
Yeah, and we're going to have a good time with that one, and make sure you hide your scissors.
Yeah. Or if you're going to use scissors, use the safety scissors instead, just in case.
Yeah, exactly. But no, pleasure to have you on again, Paul. And we've had a blast, and hope everyone else has. And we'll see you all for the next one.